Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, today we are going to create a cute little bumblebee card. We're going to be using the Say It With Stamps Busy Bees stamp set. This stamp set is just adorable. I love bumblebees, and I love that there are honeycomb pieces in here that you can stamp to create accents, and then there's also buildable sentiments. We are going to go ahead and pair this with the coordinating die set, and we're going to jump in and get started. Let's go ahead and take our stamp out of the package. Now, I fell in love with all of the bees are super cute, but we're going to be stamping the bee that's holding the little honey pot, and then also the bee that has the little honey wand. And both of the honeycombs we're going to stamp also. We're going to start by lining up our images on some alcohol marker friendly cardstock. The cardstock that I'm using today is from Say It With Stamps, and it's the premium cardstock. There are 20 sheets in here, and they're super long, so they're great for lots of sizes of cards. But they're a little over 5 inches by 12 inches, and they're super smooth, so it's great for alcohol marker coloring. That's the cardstock that I'm going to be using today. And then we're going to go ahead and use some alcohol marker friendly ink to ink up our images. And these are so adorable. How cute are those? I want to stamp one more honeycomb, so I'm going to scoot up my paper. I'm going to stamp my larger honeycomb one more time on the bottom of my panel here. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. These are the markers that I'm going to be using to color in my images. And then I'm going to play a little bit of music while I color, and when I'm done coloring, I will catch you back. Okay, coloring is all done. Now in our stamp set, there are some extra wings, and it will fit perfectly to layer on top of the existing wings, so that I'm going to stamp this once too. Now we're going to go ahead and take the coordinating dies, and we'll cut out all of our images. These are super adorable. And I'll just use my pixie tape to secure these. Okay, images are all cut out. Now we're going to go ahead and work on our background. To create our background, I'm bringing in some 4x9 stencils. I have the Say It With Stamps Clouds and Hills stencil, and I also have the Say It With Stamps Grass Edger stencil. Love the grass edger because you get the sharp pointed grass and then you get the loopy grass. I think that's pretty fun. I also think that the little bushes or the extra grass pieces in this stencil are super fun. I partially like this one. So we are going to take some white cardstock and we're going to first use the Nested Arches die set, and we're going to cut out a window inside of our panel here. We'll just line this up in the middle and we will tape this down. And then I will run this through my die cut machine. Okay, now that we have our window cut out, I thought we would do the stenciling on our background panel. So we are going to bring in our craft mat here. And then we're going to do a little bit of ink blending in our background. We're going to keep out our nested arches because we're going to actually create a frame with our set also. So to create a grassy background, it's going to be very easy. I'm going to add a little bit of ink, just using the ink that's left off on my blending brush. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of ink to the bottom area here lightly. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull down my stencil and then add it darker at the very bottom. So this creates a two-tone effect. So you can see both just by going lighter and darker. Now I'm going to take that grassy piece and I'm going to add this to my background. And then we're going to add a little bit of color. And then we have a nice little shrub. And then we're going to go ahead and take our Clouds and Hills stencil, and I'm going to create a cloudy sky. Just using the ink that's left over on my blue stencil. Creating clouds is super easy. Let's shift it a little bit. To get different shapes, you would just move over your stencil left to right. And then you can create a whole bunch of different clouds. And there we go. So we have some clouds in our background. Now after we have our background done, we'll put this aside, and then we're going to create a window frame using some blue cardstock. And I have the same one that's the same size as my window here, and then we are going to go a size larger. So we'll just layer these together. The nice thing is the notches on here, you would just, to create a frame, line up those notches, and then you can tape them down, and then your frame will be perfectly spaced. And then I'll run this through my die cut machine. Okay, so we have a nice frame border that we can use for our background. We're going to go ahead and adhere our border right now directly to the back of our background, just using some glue. After we have our frame adhered, I brought in some blue cardstock that was a little bit larger than my white frame here. We're going to mat this on here. I am going to add foam adhesive behind the back, but before we do that, I'm going to use my frame as a guide on where to adhere my background. So to do that, it's very easy. Basically, you're going to position your frame on your blue cardstock there. Flip over your stenciled background, add some adhesive, and then you can just inlay this where your existing frame is, and then it's perfectly positioned and you don't have to worry about spacing. So let's add some foam adhesive behind our frame here, and then we can add our frame now that it's popped up, and it should be perfectly positioned on our panel. Before we add our images to our fun background that we created, we're going to stamp and die cut out our sentiment. I'm going to be using the Say It With Stamps Today stamp set along with the Say It With Stamps Today die set. The die set will die cut out this today, so you can stamp on it, and then it also has a shadow die. So the nice versatility is these coordinate. I'm going to die cut out today with black cardstock, and then I'll take the shadow die and die cut it out with white cardstock. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment from our stamp set. The nice thing is Photoplay Say It With Stamps has sentiment strips. Their sentiment stamps, Today, there's quite a few of these, which are pretty amazing. All of these sentiment strips can coordinate because there's a whole bunch of different sizes. So these cut out thin strips that are straight and very easy to cut out. My sentiment today is I'm gonna customize it to say, "Is your day to shine?" And so I have it already on an acrylic block. We're gonna take some white cardstock. I'm actually gonna stamp it on the bottom of here. I'm going to stamp with black ink, and I added "is" and then "your day to shine," and we'll just stamp this on the very bottom. And then I'll go ahead and take the die and die cut out this "Today," and then I'm going to use one of my sentiment strips, and I will die cut out the rest of my sentiment over here. Okay, we have our sentiment die cut out. It's such a pretty font. I'm going to flip this around, and we're going to add some dots of glue behind it, and then we can adhere this to our shadow. If you want to stack 3 of these together for a little bit of dimension, you could, but I'm going to pop up my sentiment, so I'm not worried about the dimension on this part. They layer together just beautifully. You can see here. And then here is the rest of my sentiment, which I'm actually going to tuck underneath the other part of my sentiment. Okay, we have foam adhesive behind our sentiment, and I'm going to go ahead and place this at the very bottom of my window here. And I think that looks great. Now we can add our cute little bumblebees, and we will pop these up. I'm going to add 2 layers of foam adhesive because this one I know is going to be on the inside of our window, and I want him to be 1 level higher. And this one too. Add our bumblebees. How cute are those? Okay, now we're going to add our extra little wings, and to do this, I put foam adhesive on the very top of the wings, and on the bottom, I'm going to use a dot of glue, and then we can add our wings to the base of our bumblebee, and hold it down, and it's going to give our bumblebees a little bit of dimension. You can see here. It's going to give our bumblebee a little bit of flutter. And then I went ahead and used my scissors, and I trimmed, let me show you. I trimmed around the wings and a little bit on the head of the bumblebee here. This way we can kind of slide in the second set of wings, and it looks like we have some flutters. So cute. Okay. You could do the same thing to this one if you wanted to. Now after we have our bumblebees done there, I have our honeycomb. Oops. We're going to add some tape behind here. And I'm going to tuck one underneath my sentiment. Before we adhere this to our card base, I always think black and white polka dots go perfect with bumblebees. So using my Say It With Stamps neutral 6x6 paper pad, I trimmed down a polka dot piece of pattern paper that was slightly smaller than my card base. Today we're using an A2 side folding card base. And we are going to go ahead and adhere this at an angle on our card base. And then of course we're going to have to trim off the excess that's overhanging. We're going to flip over. I put adhesive behind our bumblebee panel, and this is going to go right down the center of our card base, just so those polka dots are peeking out on all the corners. How fun is that? Last but not least, I do want to add a little bit of sparkle. I did add a little bit of glitter to the wings of my bumblebees and also some of those clear sequins. But that finishes off my card today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this project using the Say It With Stamps Busy Bees stamp set. Such a fun stamp set. Have a great day, and we will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.